are on item number 69, so that's still you, John.
Still me. Item 69 is an action item to adopt the 2022 State Highway Operation and Protection Program. This is the state's Fix It First program, it's sometimes referred to. It's a 4-year, $17.9 billion program with over 700 projects to preserve and protect the state highway system. Just to note before, I have a couple things to say, but there is a couple items on the change list related to this item. There were, like I mentioned before, the letters related to the SHOP guidelines and also a little bit related to this are posted under this item. And then there's a couple changes to attachment B and attachment C on the change list. Okay, I have a short, we will be recommending approval of this, but there we go. There's a short presentation to talk about what we did for review, and I'll make it brief, but it kind of walks you guys through what can give us confidence in adopting this program as presented. So go ahead and hit the next slide. There we go. So Government Code 14526.5 is the statutory basis for the whole entire SHOP program. This is section E that I have on there, and there's a lot of words, so you don't have to read all the words right now. But just so you know, A, B, C, and D are all direction to Caltrans. It's saying Caltrans shall prepare the SHOP, and Caltrans shall circulate the SHOP, and Caltrans shall submit the SHOP to the commission. So that's all direction to Caltrans, and then section E is the direction to the commission. And I highlighted some of the words that are the pop-out action words that the commission is required to take. There's the commission shall review the program, and I have a few slides showing what we've done to review the program, and then the commission shall adopt the program and submit it to the legislature and the governor by April 1st, which is why we're adopting it at this March meeting. And finally, it's never come to this, but just want to highlight for your attention, the commission may decline to adopt the SHOP if it finds that it's not consistent with the asset management plan. I optimistically don't think we will have to get there because through our partnership with Caltrans. So real quick, just before we leave this, staff has been reviewing this program a lot, and the next few slides are going to show you some of the review steps that we've taken. And we sort of look at, there's a lot of projects, and so it's hard to review them one by one. And so we've kind of taken I like to think of it as a 3-step approach. We review Caltrans' process that they go through, and then we review the program at a programmatic level, and then we zero in on some individual projects. So we're kind of high level, and then we're zooming in. So you can go ahead and hit the next slide, and I'll just give you an example of what we're talking about there. This is the process review, and this is Mike Johnson's slide, and I think it's a great slide because what it does is highlight the framework that leads into the SHOP program and then ultimately the benchmark report, which it's kind of like a cycle that evaluates it. And this is, like Vince Momano was saying, this is a nationally we're leading the nation in our asset management plan and the stuff that we're doing here. So Caltrans does a good job with this framework. I graffitied on this slide, and those are my green check marks on there. And the reason I did it is because that's where the commission has interaction along this program. The first one's the asset management plan, and the commission approves the asset management plan. We approved it in 2018, and then coming up here in 2022, it's on a 4-year cycle, so we'll be approving the asset management plan again. The State Highway System Management Plan is the next one, and the commission reviews that and provides comments to Caltrans. And then the next 2 is the district performance plans and the 10-year plan. And then we come to the 4-year 2022 SHOP, and that's what we're doing here is adopting the SHOP. And then the last one is the benchmark report that we get annually from Caltrans, and that's the commission's opportunity to look back and see if we're doing what we said we were going to do. So it's a great framework laid out by Caltrans process-wise, and we're intertwined all along. Go ahead and go to the next slide. The next one is program review. So we zoom in just a little bit. And so when we review the program at a programmatic level, we're looking at the revenue assumptions and going, okay, does this align with what's in the fund estimate? We're looking at the 4 primary assets and comparing it to the 10-year targets that are in the TAM and going, okay, is Caltrans putting the right projects in here to get us where we said that we needed to go? And are we meeting the commitments that we made in SB1? Then there's the supplementary assets, and so we need to focus on the primary assets, but not forget about the supplementary assets. And then there's the reservations, and we're looking at the size of the reservations if we think they're appropriate and what they're based on. and the level of contingency projects that are in the program. We talked to Caltrans a lot this time about the level of stakeholder input that they did in not only the SHOP program, but even before that, when they were deciding what PIDs to work on and early on in the development phase and how they're engaging their stakeholders. And there's a lot of input and interaction between us and them. Go ahead and go to the next slide. One example of our programmatic review that we did, these are screenshots right from the SHOP document. And this is, for example, when we're looking at the 4 primary assets, we look at that pie chart on the left there. And I know those numbers are hard to read, but those are the big piece of pie that's half the pie is pavement, and then there's, if you follow it around clockwise, there's bridge and culverts and TMS, and that thin black line around 3/4 of the thing is showing that over 75% of the SHOP program is focused on our 4 primary assets. And then there's supplementary assets and other project things. And so I guess what I'm saying is this tells us at a programmatic level, Caltrans is putting a lot of effort into these 4 primary assets and focusing on meeting our commitments. And that's what the table next to it is showing it as well. That $9.7 billion is not 3/4 of the $17 billion, but that's because there's a lot of unaccounted for contingency construction funds that will end up bringing it up to about 3/4 of the program. And then finally, just those bubbles on the bottom, that just shows how much lane miles and bridges and culverts and TMS elements, just what's being accomplished, which is, I think it's always important to keep our eye on the actual outputs. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So then we zoom in again and go, okay, let's review the individual projects a little bit. And so we're looking for, are these projects SHOP eligible? And there's 700 projects, and so we're reading through the descriptions, kind of quickly going, do these check the box? Are these preserve and protect? And are these rehab, safety, operation, maintenance of the highway system? Complete streets is the second bullet. Just got done showing a slide that showed 3/4 of the program is focused on the 4 primary assets. And what we're checking is, we don't want, and Caltrans doesn't want to see that they do a good job. That doesn't mean 25% of the program is left for complete streets. But what we're looking for is, are you integrating and intertwining complete streets improvements as you're doing these projects that focus on the 4 primary asset classes? And so we're working with Caltrans, and Caltrans showed the commission at the January meeting that continues to increase the amount of complete streets improvements that they're incorporating into these. So we're looking at these projects and making sure that they're doing that. There's a bunch of other stuff we're checking, support costs, we're checking design build and CMGC projects and everything else on that list. We can go ahead and go to the next one. So as conclusion, I just put 3 bullets on here to go, okay, what did we find? We find that the 2022 SHOP is a good, systematically developed document that's consistent with the TAMP, heavy focus on the 4 primary asset classes. Bullet number 2 says, even with that heavy focus, we appreciate that Caltrans is continuing to look at complete streets and CAPTI related goals in the SHOP projects, and as they're doing these commitments that they've made in SB1, incorporating all this other stuff into the projects and building these projects in the way that aligns with those goals. And finally, Caltrans welcomed our questions, and this isn't related to the document, but I thought it showed strong partnership. We asked them a lot of questions, they got us a lot of responses and interacted with us. It showed confidence in their document, and they were just really good partners to us. So it was an effective partnership as we went through it. So I have one more slide. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This shows what we're adopting. So when we recommend adoption, and I just wanted to be really clear on what's being adopted. The image on the left represents the proposed SHOP that was delivered to the commission on January 31st. And that's the one that was on the public website and we reviewed. The blue arrow represents changes between what was delivered to us and then on the right, what's in the final SHOP. And so tab 69, which is what this item is, attachment C, has a list of all changes. There's some projects that are being changed. There's a few projects that are being added that were not in the January document. There's not a lot of changes, but there are some. And so what was delivered to us in January 31st, plus the attachment C changes, that's the final SHOP that we're recommending adoption for. So I'll go to the next slide. It has a recommendation, but I'm just going to add one word to it. Staff recommends the commission adopt the 2022 shop as proposed with changes documented in attachment C of this book item, which has been updated on the change list and as a replacement book item. So that's our recommendation, is adoption.
Great, thank you. And I'm so glad to hear you talk about partnerships. That's what we need to do going forward, right? Continue those partnerships and work well together. I think we have Commissioner Norton that would like to ask a question or speak.
Yes, I do. I wanted to ask about the Encino pedestrian overcrossing as it relates to a project in Caltrans District 7. We are so great about touting our partnerships, and I wanted to make sure that we're highlighting what is going to happen with active transportation when the pedestrian overcrossing is demolished, and how are we funding new projects to support active transportation in that region.
I believe Tony Tavares, there he is, District 7 Director.
Well, good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Commissioner Norton. This is Tony Tavares, District 7 Director. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. On your question regarding the Encino POC, just a little background. As I came into my position as the District 7 Director, this project was going out to advertisement for construction and had no, lack of better words, mitigation for pedestrian and bicycle access from one side of 101 to the other side of Highway 101. I immediately paused the project to bring the team back together and our partners back together to discuss, hey, we need to ensure that we have the active transportation in place. Since that time, through support and leadership of our administration, the legislature, we have been able to receive some other state funding that will allow us to place and implement active transportation improvements, complete street improvements, prior to demolishing the Encino POC. And a little bit about what those improvements are. They would take place on Burbank Boulevard, excuse me, Louise Avenue, which crosses 101, and come back over to Killian Street. Some of the benefits of this, it really addresses the gaps in our sidewalks and will also provide some curb ramp improvements. It connects pedestrians and cyclists along Louise Avenue, where the majority of our transit movement occurs, so you have access to additional modes of travel. And in addition, there is a school on the corner of Louise Avenue and Killian Street, so we'll provide safe access for our school-aged children to get from one side of Highway 101 to that school on the other side. That's our near-term project that we want to do in collaboration with this Encino POC demolition, if the commission so approves it. We are also looking at a longer-term project in our 2024 shop to look at the Amistoy pedestrian overcrossing and also the Louise Avenue overcrossing, as I mentioned in this project. Both bridges have vertical height restrictions on them, so there's an opportunity to do a more robust active transportation as well as improvements to these facilities for the community of Encino. As Secretary Omushakin mentioned yesterday, we have to be people-focused, and I have some ideas on what could occur, obviously, but I don't want to sway the community one way or the other. I am planning to begin some community outreach meetings this spring. We want to establish a workforce or a team with community members, with leaders from the communities, to help guide our decision-making process based on the needs of the community. And with that, I believe that's a much better approach than having Caltrans or government tell the community what's best for them. Rather, we want the community to tell us what they need and what those improvements should be.
Thank you. I think this is a shining example of what John Prey was talking about in terms of collaboration and solving more than the immediate issue, but thinking in the future about what the needs are going to be multimodally. So thank you very much, Director Tavares.
That answer your questions, Commissioner Norton?
It sure did. Thank you. And looking forward to seeing the future projects that evolve out of this. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Inman.
Thank you, Chair Aguirre. I have a macro question in terms of the new construction stormwater permits. Have we updated our estimates to allow enough funding for those compliance? I remember that discussion, and it's been some while back now, but we were thinking that we would need more resources. So are our project estimates still accurate to allow us to do all the compliance we need to do?
That's a good question.
Thank you for that question. Tim Sobelman, Chief Engineer with the Commission. At the moment, the stormwater permits have not yet been adopted. And I think I've heard that there are some activities going on. And so the department would have to adjust their projects once those new permits are adopted. So at the moment, I don't think there's any changes. They're still acting under the prior permits.
Okay, so we're under the old for now,
Correct.
but we have a mechanism in place, so when the new permit is required, we'll be able to make sure that our estimates, because we have limited resources, right, and if we have to comply.
I agree with your concern as it relates to that. We would be following our normal process of amending projects to accommodate additional resource needs based on the changes of those permit requirements. So I think we'll have to wait and see what the change would be and when they go into effect as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I will entertain a motion to accept.
Madam Chair, we have public comments.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Thank you, Chair Yeager. Yes, we do have a public comment at this time. A reminder to the public who is attending virtually to please use the virtual hand raise feature to indicate you wish to comment. That being said, up first we have Marshall Barth. Marshall, you're free to unmute yourself and comment.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I will try to be brief, which is difficult for a retired attorney, but anyway, I first came upon this project almost 5 years ago, the demolition of the bridge. I live adjacent to the bridge, and over 21 years have rarely seen it used. About 5 years ago, a maintenance crew was doing some repair work on the bridge, and I walked by and talked to them, and they said, yeah, we're fixing it up because it's going to be knocked down next year, and a new bridge is going to be put up. I kind of scratched my head and went home and thought about it, got a hold of Janie Thompson, who is very active and tremendous for our community, and said, well, it makes sense. They told me the bridge is unsafe, it's old, it's too short. Absolutely, knock it down. We don't want any bridge falling on a truck or a car. But why do we have to put a new one up? Because number one, this bridge is almost never used. And number two, at the end of the block is a 4-lane street called Louise, which goes over the freeway. And it seemed to me to be a waste of money. So cutting to the chase, Janie and I and several other people went down to Caltrans. Caltrans was very cooperative. We went through records of discussions on this bridge, opponents within Caltrans to putting up a new bridge, and we ended up discovering that the replacement and the destruction of the bridge would cost around $20 million. Now, it seems to me that the bridge, knocking it down, was going to cost about $2 million, and it seemed to be a horrible waste of taxpayers' money not to use the $18 million for something better. Caltrans has many projects to use it on. So we started to pursue this avenue, and we're constantly met by, number one, people within Caltrans, people outside of Caltrans, who wanted that new bridge to be put up, no matter what. We couldn't figure it out, and talking to everybody involved, people within Caltrans, people within Caltrans management, our city council, nobody could give us a reason why the new bridge had to be put up. Everybody agreed the old one had to be knocked down. Well, this process went on. We had community meetings. Community took the same position that we had taken, that knock the bridge down if it's not safe, don't waste the money on the new bridge. We met opposition by Caltrans every inch of the way. Caltrans had a survey. They had cameras up there to see how many people used the bridge. And considering the tens of thousands, well, maybe not that many, but the thousands of people on each side of the pedestrian bridge who could use it, a minuscule amount of people ever used that bridge. Then we reached into a situation, well, it's on the books and we have an agreement with the city that if we knock it down, it has to be put back up. So I said, well, I understand that, but my training tells me an agreement can also be changed by people who were parties to the agreement with a new agreement. We went through that process. At one time we had hints, believe it or not, of them trying to pit one side of the bridge residents against the other side of the bridge's residents. And it went on and continued with meetings. We had flyers go out. We had responses to flyers, all of which substantiated our position that the new bridge did not need to come up. Finally, we were told a while ago, Caltrans agreed.
Mr. Barth, your time has expired. We need you to wrap it up, please.
Okay, I would just like to know why it has taken close to 5 years to do something that would have saved the taxpayers $18 million, and we're stalled again by being told, well, we can't break a portion out just to knock the bridge down and and put the new one up. I thank you for your patience. I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment?
Yes, we do. Up next, we have Janie Thompson.
Hello, my name is Janie Thompson. Can you hear me?
Yes.
First, I'd like to thank Senator Stern, Assemblyman Jesse Gabriel, City Councilman Paul Carez, the Encino Property Owners Association, the Encino Neighborhood Council, and the more than 600 residents who signed a petition to oppose the building of the $20 million bridge. And I'd like to say that we've been very vocal from the beginning that we couldn't see taxpayer money being spent for a bridge that nobody was going to use. But what I want to say is that, I represent over 600 homeowners, and I'm also vice president of the Encino Property Owners Association, which has more than 1,000 members. I sent photos, and please ask your staff to share those photos with you so that you can see the situation at the bridges. We have two bridges. We have the Encino pedestrian bridge, and in the center we have the Louise Avenue that vehicles can drive over, and there are sidewalks on both sides of Louise. And then we have the Amistoy Bridge. And so what we're asking you is please, there's out of the 20 million, we're now told there's $5,671,000. Please utilize those funds to demolish the Encino pedestrian bridge as soon as possible, and utilize what's left over to demolish the Amistoy pedestrian bridge. These bridges were built in the 1950s, and if you will look at the photos that I sent, you will see that chunks of cement are falling off the bridges where the trucks are hitting them. And the Amistoy Bridge, now all of the metal poles that hold up the chain link fencing have chunks of cement that are missing. And when you can take photos of the bridge portion on the exterior side, it is coming loose, and those chunks of cement could easily fall on the vehicles that are traveling on the 101. The biggest issue for us as a community is what the bridges attract. They attract criminal activity. They're constantly taken over by transient homeless encampments. And these individuals bring gas cans and they start campfires. We just this week had CHP, with the help of CD4, our council member, sent out CHP to remove the encampment off the bridge and the encampment that was behind the third home on Albers near the Amistoy Bridge. We live in constant fear of fires. On Thanksgiving Day, we had Santa Ana's, and a homeless encampment started a fire, and the cinders came across the 101 freeway and started 2 fires in our community on Killian and on Ostrom. So I'm asking you to please make this a priority, and I'm glad that Director Tony Tavares spoke, because I think it's important that he reach out to us, because we've sent plenty of emails. We would like to communicate with him. We would like to be involved. And in the beginning, Caltrans was never going to build sidewalks or put in lights or trees or anything else. But when they pitted the community that was near Oxnard, that's nowhere near the bridges, they promised them sidewalks, trees, lighting. Well, gosh, if you promised me those things, I would agree to whatever you want me to agree to as well. What we're asking you to do is please take our safety as a top priority so that we don't lose our homes because someone who is completely drugged out started a fire and then passed out. So I thank you for listening to me, and we look forward to working with Caltrans, and we ask them that when they do community outreach, that they include all of the residents who live near the pedestrian bridges, because every time they've done a mailer, they exclude half of our community, and our community has 2 bridges. There's no other community along the 101 in Los Angeles County that has 2 pedestrian bridges. Those bridges are not utilized except by.
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we certainly heard from Director Tavares that he will be doing public outreach, so you'll be looking for that communication. Do we have others?
Yes, thank you, Chair Yeager. We do have a few more at this time. Up next, we have Senator Henry Stern.
Yes. Hi, am I coming through okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My apologies. I'm in transit right now, but I've been paying close attention to the hearing, and I just want to start by thanking CTC and especially Ms. Norton for speaking up about possibilities for active transportation in the San Fernando Valley, where we know that the moniker is "Nobody Walks in LA," but we want to change that. And I think the item today is just the first step in what I'm hoping will be a more sustainable, more walkable, safer, and more accessible community in Encino. So I really want to thank the staff for working through this. And I appreciate the comments from Caltrans, from Director Tavares, and his commitment to working with the community here. You know, you can hear some of the trepidation coming from community members, but I think what you'll hopefully also hear is a willingness and a will to say yes. That trying to find these sort of main thoroughfares where walking's already occurring, such as the Louise Avenue improvements that we were able to obtain in the budget, to sort of accompany the demolition item here today, to me is indispensable component of this project. But the one thing I want to just make sure or try to get some clarity on is that indispensable, but not necessarily a precondition. So I wanted to get clarity that the project being approved in SHOP today is not necessarily contingent on the additional CEQA process or notice and comment process that'll have to occur around the broader Complete Streets project that I was able to get funding for. That they're obviously related, but that they'll be sort of going through the permitting process in parallel, and not sort of re-noticing, in other words, this sort of safety demolition project. Is it possible to get clarity from staff or from Caltrans on that?
My understanding, Director Tavares can correct me if I'm wrong, those are separate projects. The demolition is one project that we're recommending approval of now, and that will be a follow-up project. Is that correct?
That's the way we've presented it, but we're also looking at other opportunities to advance both of them simultaneously together in one package, or put them out as 2 separate projects going at the same time. So the idea is to do our best to implement those active transportation solutions at the same time the other POC is being demolished.
Great, thank
And
you.
I know thank you for that somewhat clarification. It sounds like that's still maybe a question mark for how Caltrans is going to proceed in terms of the timing for noticing the ATP improvements that we want to see in the area, which I think is smart to consider at least getting that community process going in parallel. What I don't want to see is safety issues occurring around that bridge with truck traffic and the constant 101 traffic going through there that we sort of slow down. So I know you've got a February 23 date here in your shop agenda, but so, even that, we don't want that incident to happen. We think we're in a safe spot to get it done by then, but I would just say the most expedited path to that initial demolition, and then trying to look at those future opportunities for dealing with the other Amistoy POC, as well as this Louise improvement that we want to see, and maybe having one arterial, central, walkable, sort of community uplift project. I think people are very excited about that. So I would ask that for both of your future consideration and support the item today, and really appreciate all the diligence done here.
Thank you so much. Any others?
Yes, up next we have Rob Glushin.
Good afternoon. My name is Rob Glushin. I am president of the Encino Property Owners Association. We represent over 1,000 residents, including on both sides of the 101 at this location. Strongly support the adoption of this item that includes the demolition of the pedestrian overpass that is not used, and hopefully the demolition of the other pedestrian-only bridge at Amistoy as soon as that can be done. We are the pedestrians. We support, as State Senator Sturm said, walkability. We support infrastructure improvements to enhance that. But whether you live on either side of the 101 at these locations, we can tell you the community has been very strong in opposing a rebuilding of bridges that lead to really nowhere. But at the same time, as Senator Sturm indicated, we strongly support his vision and staff's vision, and hopefully the commissioner's vision of the kind of improvements, especially along Killian and Louise at this overpass, that will enhance. It's not either or. It's all of the above, but we want to make sure that the commission knows that the community, while continuing to be willing to work with Caltrans staff, has been very, very strong, and that's why we're hearing from so many of us today that these two antiquated, dangerous bridges that are magnets for transients and criminal activity now need to be demolished. And we look forward to the improvements and working with staff on enhancing walkability and improvements in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Ann Hurwitz.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I'll make it short and sweet, but I am here as a concerned mother and just want to reiterate the importance of the demolition of the Encino Bridge. I live very close to it, and I have 2 young boys, and I've witnessed countless drug deals that are there. I've been walking my dogs with my boys, and we'll see heroin needles by the bridges. One time, to the point where we don't even walk around that area. I always feel really nervous, but we do still need to drive our car there to get home. And I've witnessed one time a naked woman was climbing over the fence, screaming obscenities. And I also just want to point out that it is very close to the Westmark School. So it is concerning on many levels. Unfortunately, these bridges just bring in unwanted, chaos at times. And I really appreciate you listening. We've been dealing with this for years, and we would love just to have these bridges demolished, please.
Thank you for your comments. Next.
Up next, we have Lane Rosen.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Lane Rosen, and I also am attending and speaking out as a concerned mother and resident of the Amistoy Estates community. I also have 3 small children, and unbeknownst to us when we first moved into the neighborhood 8 years ago, we were excited about the possibility of having a close pedestrian overpass, and only to come to find that it is constantly being used as a haven for tents and people living on the access to the bridge. People are dumping all sorts of stuff underneath the bridge and cutting the chain link fence. Every single time they've come to repair it over and over again, they cut the fence and they go back there and they participate in unwanted activities, drug deals. They light little fires when they're sleeping there overnight. And like Anne said, I mean, we live very close to Anne, also to the bridge. We don't even go that direction. It's like we can only leave our house and go one way because the danger of who might be there and what they're doing there is not something I want to expose my children to. So even though we live so close to an overpass, we walk all the way around the other way to Louise to cross over when we want to cross over the 101. The bridge is part of a series of bridges that were there in the 50s. There was lots of them crossing over the freeway when property belonged to one man who wanted his workers to be able to cross the 101, and they took down every single other bridge except for these 2 specific bridges where there is a very accessible street with sidewalks just steps away. So we are very eager to get rid of these bridges for safety reasons, for safety of the community, for safety over the highway, and to hopefully use the funds to demolish the bridges first and then increase the
Great, thank you.
yes, at some point.
I think she cut out, but up next we have Ariana Azanto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your indulgence. I will be brief as I echo the sentiments of the previous speakers. I'm also a resident of Amistoy Estates in Encino. I live on Killian, equidistant from both pedestrian bridges. Over the last 10 years, I have witnessed a variety of activity, ironically, very few pedestrians. This activity has become increasingly more disturbing over the last 5 years. The bridges have become a magnet for illegal activity, attracting homeless who set up tents and make it their home. They light fires to keep warm, to cook God knows what. We are all aware of the drought conditions in the state, and we constantly live in fear of brush fires. Well, on Thanksgiving Day, our worst fears were realized when embers from one of the fires traveled and lit my neighbor's trees on fire. Thankfully, full-blown disaster was diverted, but next time we may not be so lucky. I was born and raised in this city, and in those 40 years, I have never been afraid to walk out my front door to check my mail like I am now. I've spent thousands of dollars on cameras, an alarm system, a perimeter wall, and frankly, I'm tired of it. We all are. I appreciate the comments from Director Taveras and the value he places on collaborating with the community. With that, I will pause and implore you to demolish both pedestrian bridges this year. Demolishing one of them will merely shift the dangerous element to the Amistoy Bridge. Both bridges are in disrepair, they're not used, and the residents don't want them. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Chair Yeager, I see no other attendees indicating they wish to comment at this time.
Thank you. Do we have any? Yes?
Make a motion.
Okay.
Make a motion to, do you want to make, you need to make it?
No, I already gave my recommendation to adopt.
I make a motion to adopt the recommendation.
Do we have a second?
Abalone, second.
Oh, oh, there's a voice coming from somewhere. Thank you so much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now, Tim, I think you have the next 15 or 100, I don't know.
Thank you, Chair Eager. With the time constraint, I'm hoping that Mike Johnson is on the line. Tab 70 is an informational item on the draft Transportation Asset Management Plan. Mike Johnson, the statewide asset management engineer for Caltrans, is here to present on the draft 2022 Transportation Asset Management Plan. I see Mike there. Take it away, Mike.
Good afternoon, Chair Eager and Commissioners. First, I'd like to thank you for the adoption of the 2022 SHOP. It is important to remember that the SHOP is the execution arm of our asset management framework, and certainly appreciate the partnership that John talked about, and our ability to work very, very collaboratively with both Tim and John is absolutely essential. From what you just saw was an extremely robust discussion on one project out of 720 some odd projects in the overall SHOP. So I think from that discussion, you could see that our districts are working all up and down the state of California. Our headquarters units are working to try to put together a portfolio that is meeting the variety of things that we're trying to achieve as a department. So appreciate the commission's support on that. I had the privilege of being in the audience yesterday. Unfortunately, I had to return to Sacramento. And so I'm coming to you virtually today. But I did take a quick inventory. And I think the last time that the Transportation Asset Management Plan was before the commission, all of the commissioners have changed over with the exception of Commissioner Inman and Gordino. So if we were in Survivor, they would be the last two on the island. So congratulations to the two of you. But without further ado, I will provide a quick background for those of you that are new on the Transportation Asset Management Plan, and I will be as brief as I can. This plan covers a 4-year period. It's required by federal regulation to be updated every 2 years, hence a 2022 plan, which will cover us to 2026. The Transportation Asset Management Plans are required by every state in the United States for a limited set of physical assets and a number of key processes for asset management. When we look at our financial aspects within the plan, we're generally looking out 10 years at a time, similar to the State Highway System Management Plan. One of the big differences with the Transportation Asset Management Plan is that it represents a picture that is both jointly state and local agency ownership included. And this means that we have to have extreme coordination with MPOs, RTPs, and cities and counties all up and down California. I will say that the TAMP is consistent with the State Highway System Management Plan. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the disparities there because I think it gets at some of the feedback that we've been recently getting. Next slide. I'm not going to read all of this, but just know that we have a number of federal regulations as well as state regulations. I have 2 oversight entities on the approval of the TAMP, Vince Mamato and the Federal Highway Administration under federal regulations, and the commission is oversight and has adoption authority of the asset management plan under state regulation. If Vince were there, he would probably be the first to tell you that federal regulation always trumps state regulation, and I continually get reminded of that by our federal partners. Next slide. John showed this slide. I won't belabor it, but the Transportation Asset Management Plan is the document on the far left, and our second document is the State Highway System Management Plan, reading from left to right. I want to make it clear to the commission that when we do the Transportation Asset Management Plan, it's 4 assets: pavement, bridges, culvert, and TMS elements for the state. So it's basically a 4x1 asset matrix. When we do the State Highway System Management Plan, we bring all investment areas into the shop, which expands the number of areas we're looking at to 32, and it does it by each of our 12 districts. So the State Highway System Management Plan is essentially 100 times more detailed than the Transportation Asset Management Plan. And this is really important because as we get into some of the public comment that you may receive, a lot of it will be down in the details. Those details are typically in the State Highway System Management Plan, not as much in the Transportation Asset Management Plan. Next slide. There's a number of required components. I'm not going to read the list here, but these are federally required components of the Transportation Asset Management Plan. And as you heard yesterday from both Acting Director Keck as well as Administrator Mamano, California's draft plan, the one that you received on March 1st, is being held up nationwide for all states to emulate, particularly in the area of system resiliency. The system resiliency requirement for asset management was just recently passed in the IIJA Act, and many states are struggling with it, but California already has it in there, and our plan is being held up for everyone to look at. Next slide. This is a really important slide, and I want to go through this. It's important for the Commission to understand that the Transportation Asset Management Plan by federal regulations is presenting on the scope of the system that is called the National Highway System, or NHS. The NHS represents a portion of the state highway system and a relatively small portion of the local roadway system. But under federal regulation, neither the entire state highway system nor the entire local transportation system is being represented. For this reason, when we do the Transportation Asset Management Plan in California, in order to meet both sets of regulations, we have two looks. One is for the National Highway System, jointly owned between Caltrans and our local partners. And then we also present a very high-level state highway system view. Next slide. This is just a quick glimpse of the National Highway System. The blue lines represent locally owned National Highway System, and you could see large concentrations in the San Francisco Oakland Bay area, as well as Los Angeles and San Diego. Next slide. Within the TAMP, we document the National Highway System inventory. So how many lane miles of pavement do we have? What is its current condition? And this is done in a very intuitive presentation. I hope that the Commission finds it easy to read. You can quickly see what is the breakdown of good, fair, poor for the jointly owned National Highway System pavement, as well as National Highway System bridges. Next slide. There are also further breakdowns that break down the ownership between state and local entities. In this case, we're showing pavement on the left of the National Highway System. Cities and counties own 36% of the lane miles of the National Highway System pavement, and the state owns 64%. So when we present the TAMP, we are presenting a combined look of both local entity work as well as work done by Caltrans. Next slide. And similarly for bridges, we present both looks. In the case of the National Highway System, Caltrans owns 90% of the total surface area of bridges in the state for the NHS, and the locals own about 10%. When you get off the NHS, you consider the entire state of California, those percentages shift a little bit more towards the local side. Next slide. One of the things that we did for this TAMP was produce some tools to help our MPOs. And this is one, I'm not going to certainly go through it, but I just wanted to show the graphic so that the Commission can understand that there are some complex analyses that are going on behind the scenes. And this tool Caltrans developed we made it available to the MPOs in California to evaluate whether their finances were adequate to get them to the targets that they had established for their conditions. As a result of this tool, all of our MPOs in California reevaluated their targets. And in fact, every MPO in California changed their targets. This particular tool, which is an Excel-based tool, is something that is of great interest nationally for other cities and counties around the country. Next slide. Within the Transportation Asset Management Plan, you will see targets. And I just show a small excerpt of the targets here for both pavement and bridges, so that the commission can understand that from one entity to the next within California, there can be dramatic differences in the condition of our assets. And this is really important. Some of this is born from the disparities between self-help counties and non-self-help counties. Some of it is born based on other circumstances. But there is a very transparent presentation within the asset management plan by agency and broken down by pavement and bridge. In fact, we even break it down to cities within each county in California to provide that transparency to the public. Next slide. We do some financial analysis. We're required to look at two scenarios, investment scenarios. One is, what would it take to maintain current conditions? And then what would it take to maintain or to achieve the desired state of repair or achieve our targets? And then we present a third one in our TAMP, which is what all of the MPOs and Caltrans actually expect to be able to achieve given the fiscal constraints, the inventory and condition that each agency is working with. To cliff note the results, there are performance gaps projected for the combined state and local NHS. In other words, even with additional funding from SB1, there are still significant funding gaps for our transportation agencies in California to achieve their desired targets. And then lastly, for the 4 core assets, consistent with the State Highway System Management Plan and John's presentation on the shop, we are driving a considerable investment to these assets to ensure that we meet the commitment that we made the people of California when they passed SB1 by achieving those performance targets by 2027 for the 4 core assets. Next slide. Quick timeline, I won't run through it all. As I mentioned, we submitted the draft plan to the commission in March, as well as to the Federal Highway Administration. We'll be working with Tim and staff over the next month or two to review their comments. We will hopefully be back in May to get official comments from the commission, and we will be back either in June or August, depending on the desire of the commission, for a vote of adoption of the Transportation Asset Management Plan at that time. Last slide. This is a 220 some odd page document. It took about 14 months working with our partners to produce this document. A lot of people were involved, and I just wanted to put the acknowledgements up on the screen from our executive team to the Caltrans project team, and especially to Don Foster, who was leading a lot of the work to get the TAMP done. We had presenters from the state controller, from cities and counties, from consultants that came into our workshops, and then a whole list of partners that we couldn't have done this TAMP without their support, and have listed all those agencies. And we certainly appreciate their partnership and their collaboration in producing this document. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mike, and I'm sorry we didn't get to you yesterday. We tried our hardest, but thank you for showing up again today, at least virtually, to go over this important document. Do we have any questions or comments? We don't. I guess you told it all to us. We don't have any questions for you. Thank you.
That's the value of going late on the day 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay,
Okay.
Tim.
Thank you, Chair Eager. Commissioners, tab 71 is an action item for an ADA curb ramps project on State Route 1 in Orange County that is requesting an initial allocation that exceeds the programmed amount by more than 20%. They're requesting $3 million in construction support and $8,887,000 in construction capital. An increase to the program amount was anticipated due to this project being selected to receive funding from the 2020 SHOP Complete Streets reservation. This project received $1.9 million in construction capital and $500,000 in support from the Complete Streets reservation. This accounts for most of the requested allocation increase. Without these elements, this project would have been within 20% of the programmed amounts. Staff has reviewed this project and the request and recommends approval for this item.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve Martinez?
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
It seems like we are seeing a lot of cost increases with projects that are related to ADA improvements. Is that just my imagination?
No, I've seen a number of projects recently on the supplementals that are related to ADA.
Perhaps we can work with Caltrans to understand why that's occurring.
I'd be happy to go back and talk to Caltrans about that.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
All those
Madam
in
Chair, did
favor?
we get a second? I didn't hear a second.
Tabulani second.
Inman second.
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Commissioners, I will present items 72 through 76 with a recommendation at the end. Item 72 is an action item for the roadway rehabilitation project on State Route 3 and State Route 263 in Siskiyou County that is requesting a supplemental allocation for pre-construction support for the plan specifications and estimate phase. Please note a slight edit to the book item as identified on the change list. This project realized cost increases due to conflicts with a concurrently planned project within the same project limits and delays due to the loss of the independent cost estimator being used as part of the construction manager general contractor alternative delivery method. Additional resources were expended to onboard the newly selected independent cost estimator, and the City of Eureka is working on a large utility rehabilitation project, and it was identified that the city's water and sewer system is in conflict with this project's proposed drainage system. Additional resources were required to identify and resolve conflicts and revise the design plans. Caltrans is requesting $600,000 in supplemental funds to complete this phase and to perform reconciliation with the CMGC contractor and the ICE contractor and award the $53 million G13 contingency project. Item 73 is an action item for an ADA curb ramp project on US 101 in Marin County that is requesting a supplemental allocation for pre-construction support for the plan specification and estimates phase. In addition to the ADA ramp work, this project will relocate a bus stop to a local street. The bus stop relocation triggered an evaluation of 2 existing unsignalized intersections with local streets to ensure safe pedestrian access to and from the bus stop. After this phase was allocated, Caltrans completed their evaluation and it was determined a traffic signal was required. And per Caltrans policy, a roundabout option must be evaluated. And after this evaluation and consensus with the city and transit operators, it was determined a roundabout is the most appropriate solution. As a result, Caltrans is requesting $850,000 in supplemental funds for the additional efforts to design the roundabout, coordinate maintenance responsibilities with the city and transit agencies, and to advertise and award the contract. Item 74 is an action item for a permanent restoration project on State Route 84 in San Mateo County that is requesting a supplemental allocation for pre-construction support for the plan specification and estimates phase. The project scope will repair a slope washout by constructing a retaining wall to prevent further erosion and to widen the shoulder. During this phase, Caltrans had further coordination with San Mateo County, resulting in some changes to the retaining wall design to facilitate a wider shoulder for a future Class 2 bike lane and to be consistent with the San Mateo County Active Transportation Plan. Caltrans is requesting $456,000 in supplemental funds to finalize the design and advertise and award the project. Item 75 is an action item for a pavement preservation project on Interstate 880 in Alameda County that is requesting a supplemental allocation for pre-construction support for the plan specification estimate phase. Please note there is a yellow replacement book item as identified on the change list. In June of 2021, Caltrans issued guidelines on the use of positive work zone protection and mitigation measures for all projects on the state highway system to reduce injuries and deaths of workers to the traveling public. All projects that have not completed PS&E by January 2022 are required to follow the new guidelines to determine if positive work zone protection measures are required. This project falls into that category, and the evaluation resulted in the proposed incorporation of a movable barrier called the zipper. To facilitate the incorporation of this feature into the construction contract, Caltrans needs to analyze and revise stage construction and traffic handling plans, including coordination with the supplier of the zipper as it is a sole source vendor. The coordination with the vendor is expected to be extensive as Caltrans has not implemented a project with the zipper where the project limits contain such a large number of interchanges. Caltrans is requesting $1.35 million in supplemental funds to finalize PS&E, including all activities related to incorporating the zipper into the contract documents, perform additional constructability reviews, and advertise and award the project, which includes anticipated bidder inquiries related to the movable barrier, as this is new to Caltrans and contractors. CTC staff understands the supplemental funds are needed to continue working on an important pavement project and supports Caltrans' efforts to enhance work zone safety and recommends approval of the supplemental funds request. However, because Caltrans has indicated the new movable barrier feature will increase construction support and capital by between 20 and 25 million on a $57 million project. Prior to requesting a construction allocation for this project, Commission staff request that Caltrans provide a programmatic evaluation of the implementation of the positive work zone protection policy in the shop and other projects on the state highway system. Item 76 is an action item for a bridge rehabilitation project on US 101 in Monterey County that is requesting a supplemental allocation for pre-construction right-of-way support. This project proposes to upgrade the bridge railing and rehabilitate the bridge deck, which requires Union Pacific Railroad involvement. The traffic management plan initially allowed for long-term lane closures. However, it was later determined that long-term closures would not be allowed. This changed the scope of the bridge deck resulting in the Union Pacific Railroad review process to start over, causing increases to right-of-way support as they act as the liaison with Union Pacific Railroad. Caltrans is requesting $150,000 in supplemental funds for right-of-way support to administer the railroad agreement, the right-of-way acquisition contract, and to perform other closeout activities during construction. Staff has reviewed the projects and the requests for items 72 through 76 and recommends approval of these items.
That was a lot of words.
I know.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
I see no public comment at this time. Thank you.
If I could just ask, in relation to tab 75, I appreciate what you asked, Tim. Can we also ask Caltrans before they come in for that capital cost increase specific to this project to explain what other safety measures they evaluated and why this one was selected over the other ones?
We can do that.
Thank you.
So noted. No other comment?
Second.
That was Commissioner Liu and Commissioner Davis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Commissioners, I will present items 77 through 79 with a recommendation at the end. Item 77 is an action item for a roadway protective betterments project on State Route 139 in Laskin County, requesting a supplemental allocation of $234,000 to award the project. In December 21, the department advertised the project, held bid openings in January 22, and the project received 6 bids, of which the lowest bid was 19.2% above the engineer's estimate. One of the main components on this project is to install rockfall protection netting along the steep, rocky slope. The main reasons for the cost increases are due to increased unit costs for steel and rock excavation. Item 78 is an action item for a pavement preservation project on Interstate 8 in San Diego County, requesting a supplemental allocation of $8,817,000 to award the project. In October 2021, the department advertised the contract and held bid openings in December 2021. The contract received 7 bids, of which the lowest bid was 25.3% above the engineer's estimate. Supply chain issues are impacting raw material costs for bid items containing steel and concrete. Labor shortages and significant material and trucking cost increases are impacting the bids received. The biggest cost differences between the engineer's estimate and the lowest bid are related to unit prices related to continuously reinforced concrete pavement, roadway excavation, and other concrete-related items. Item 79 is an action item for an ADA curb ramp project on State Route 273 in Shasta County, requesting a supplemental allocation of $731,000 to award the project. In December of 2021, the department advertised the project and held a bid opening in February of 22. The project received 2 bids, of which the lowest bid was 16.8% above the engineer's estimate. The biggest cost differences between the engineer's estimate and the lowest bid are related to higher unit prices for the architectural treatment of the retaining wall, traffic control, curb and sidewalk removal, and hot mix asphalt. The staff has reviewed the project and the requests for items 77 through 79 and recommends approval for these items.
No public comment.
Just one, going back to 77, what was the amount of the difference, the low bidder won the bid by?
They're requesting $234,000 to award the project.
I thought I heard you say that the low bid was 19% low or something.
19% above the engineer's estimate.
Okay.
That was the lowest bid.
Yeah, and then the other piece is I get the steel costs went up, but the rock's the rock. That hasn't changed, so I'm not quite sure why they're including rock in. Just a question you can ask them. Maybe I don't understand. Maybe like they're special rocks or contractors on what needs to come in or come out.
Yeah, it's just basically a comparison of what the engineer's estimate was to what the lowest bidder was, and so, they may have some other reasons, but we can check on that.
I make the motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion, excuse me, by Commissioner Davis. Do we have a second? Commissioner Falcone? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Back to you, Tim.
Thank you, Chair Eager. Commissioners, I will present items 80 through 83 with a recommendation at the end. Item 80 is an action item for a major damage permit restoration project on US 101 in Marin County, requesting a supplemental allocation to complete construction. The increase in construction capital is related to additional compliance with the new emergency water restrictions adopted by the North Marin Water District after the contract was awarded. Also, increased cost to haul unanticipated contaminated soil off-site. Lastly, due to the early heavy rains in October of 2021, the discovery of unanticipated hazard materials, the project now requires a second season to complete the work, which added the installation of stormwater protection items and additional maintenance of the site. Caltrans is requesting $750,000 of supplemental funds for construction capital to complete construction. Item 81 is an action item for a pavement rehabilitation project on I-5 in Kern County, requesting a supplemental allocation to complete construction. In March of 2021, the department received $9,335,000 of supplemental funds to address differing site conditions. That supplemental funds request focused on the extensive pavement damage that was not anticipated on the southbound lanes and included a new pavement strategy to utilize reinforced concrete with the expectation that a secondary supplemental will be requested at a future date to address the pavement strategy in the northbound lanes. Since the initial supplemental, the project realized cost increases due to pavement failure of the median detour, encountering unstable material on the southbound lanes, delays affecting time-related expenditures, and material, equipment, and labor cost escalations for the remaining work. Caltrans is requesting $7,135,000 of supplemental funds for construction capital to complete the project. Item 82 is an action item for an equipment repair facility project on I-5 in Los Angeles County, requesting a supplemental allocation of construction support to complete construction. This project was brought before the Commission in January, requesting $1.3 million in additional construction support. However, due to questions posed during the meeting, it was decided to allocate $300,000 in supplemental funds to keep the project moving. Caltrans was asked to provide additional detail regarding the remaining work to complete the project, and the basis of the construction support resource estimates prior to coming back to the Commission for additional funding. Since the January CTC meeting, Caltrans provided additional information regarding the project status, and a briefing was held between the Commission and Caltrans to discuss various aspects of the repair facility. Caltrans has refined its construction support estimate and is requesting $480,000 in supplemental funds for construction support to complete the project. Item 83 is an action item for a roadway rehabilitation project on I-10 in Riverside County, requesting a supplemental allocation for construction support to complete construction. This project realized cost increases due to several factors. The department revised the traffic control strategy during the initial advertisement of the project. This new strategy allowed for a median detour with temporary barrier that enabled the contractor to work longer shifts. Caltrans provided additional staff to align with the contractor's operations, which increased construction support needs. Support increases were also due to the non-working days incurred during construction due to the changes in traffic management strategies and weather delays. Lastly, Caltrans had to address drainage, underground electrical, and landscaping impacts due to differing construction methods brought upon by a change in the material used to replace the lanes and the shoulder. Caltrans is requesting $4,431,000 in supplemental funds for construction support to complete the project. Staff has reviewed the projects and the requests for items 80 through 83 and recommends approval for these items.
Thank you. Commissioner Inman, you had a question?
I do. Director Tavares. I've really struggled with 82, and I want to thank our team and Caltrans for the follow-up. But Director Tavares, can you talk to us a little bit about lessons learned here? Because I remain concerned about this project.
Absolutely, Commissioner Inman. Once again, I'm Tony Tavares, District 7 Director for Caltrans. I want to thank the Commission staff for working with us over the last several months on this project. You and I have had some individual discussions, and vertical construction is not necessarily something we do on a daily basis at Caltrans. And so definitely I've regrouped with my team to look at what are all the lessons we've learned from this project and how can we share those lessons throughout the state with other districts and with our headquarters team as well. Many of the lessons that my team has brought to me, I see as really the outcome of something even greater. And in my opinion, I think the ability for Caltrans to partner with the private industry, individuals who actually do this type of work on a daily basis or regular basis, they're in tune with what the latest industry practices are, the best practices, how quickly these types of projects can be delivered. They can help us through the planning, through the design, through the construction process. And then all the other aspects of some of the lessons learned, like looking at benchmark inspection versus then full-time inspection, looking at having mandatory pre-bid meetings and pre-qualified fabricators, things of that nature, and also different delivery methods. Should we look at design build and some of these other methods that we could have delivered this project more efficiently, more economically, and more effectively? So it really stems to a lot of those issues.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think as we look at our asset management plan and we actually dig down into the facility portion of that, if we can really take a look at just what you're talking about, and where we have projects that we started out thinking this was 2.5 years and it was a prefab project, out of respect for our communities, we've got to get in and get our work done and move on. And so I think just really holistically, and then finally, but also very, very important, is we look at our alternative fuel future. Are we building the right facility? Hopefully Caltrans is going to get a big infusion of resources to kind of accelerate our journey there and adopting some of that. So we may want to have different kind of repair shops, and then also the infrastructure that we need, depending on what fuel the heavy-duty sector lands in. So I think, sometimes you have to go through painful things to really, and I think we'll be better if you can really just, and I'm happy to lean in and help in any way, but I think for all of us, we're probably going to see a capital increase on this project as well. So it's probably something that let's be better in the future. And I think a real holistic look. So happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other comments? Public comment?
No public comment at this time.
And I will entertain a motion to accept.
Abalone, move it.
And Commissioner Edmund seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. And I understand 84 has been withdrawn? That is correct. Yes? Okay, then we'll move on to 85 with Casey.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, thank you. Tab 85 is an action item for the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program. The Losan Corridor is requesting an additional $1,502,000 to complete the environmental phase for the San Diego Maintenance and Layover Facility component of the Losan Service Enhancement Program in San Diego County. There was miscommunication between Losan and Caltrans regarding the amount programmed in the environmental phase. Caltrans had the opportunity to adjust the programmed amount prior to the initial allocation, but suggested Losan request the supplemental allocation when additional funds were needed. To support the increase, Losan is decreasing the construction component, which will be supplanted with other sources of funds. Staff has reviewed this request and recommends approval.
No public comment.
I will entertain a motion to accept. Commissioner Liu,
Second.
second. Commissioner Davis, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. We are on 86. Anja.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Anya Allenbacher with the Local Partnership Program and California Transportation Commission. I will present tabs 86 and 87 and then make a recommendation for action on both items after the presentations. Tab 86 is an action item to amend the Local Partnership Program funding distribution. The City of Ukiah informed Commission staff of their voter-approved 1/2 cent sales tax measure. Staff reviewed the documents submitted by the agency and verified eligibility. Staff recommends adding formulaic funding to the City of Ukiah for a total of $600,000 distributed with $200,000 in each fiscal year of the 2020 program cycle. That is fiscal year 2021, fiscal year 21-22, and fiscal year 22-23. In addition, the City of Nevada City informed Commission staff of their voter-approved 1/2 cent sales tax renewal measure on January 14th, 2022, and staff reviewed the documents submitted by the agency to verify their continued eligibility. Commission staff determined that Nevada City is no longer eligible for the Local Partnership Formulaic Program based on the renewed Measure M because the revenue generated will not be dedicated solely to transportation improvements. Measure M went into effect on January 1st, 2022, and supersedes the previously eligible measure, Measure S. Pursuant to the 2020 Local Partnership Program guidelines, the City of Nevada City is eligible to receive formulaic funding through December 31st, 2021. So the agency will retain their formulaic funding in fiscal years 2021 and 21-22. Staff is recommending deleting formulaic funding to the City of Nevada City in fiscal year 2022-23 in the amount of $200,000. The 2020 formulaic funding is available for programming through June 30, 2023. Tab 87 is an action item to amend the Local Partnership Formulaic Program. The recommended amendments will add the Transit Security and Operations Center project in Orange County and program $19,650,000 to the construction phase in fiscal year 2022-23. and add the Smart Rail Operations Equipment Expansion Phase 3 project in Sonoma and Marin counties, and program $679,000 to the construction phase in fiscal year 21-22, and add the South State Street and Dora Street Rehabilitation Project in Mendocino County, and program $600,000 to the construction phase in fiscal year 21-22. With these amendments, we would have program funding for 166 projects totaling $579 million since the implementation of the local partnership formulaic program. This action would leave $93.5 million of the 2020 local partnership formulaic program funding available for programming through June 30, 2023. Staff has reviewed these requests and they are consistent with local partnership formulaic program guidelines. Staff recommends your approval of tabs 86 and 87.
Thank you, Anya. Do we have any public comment?
I see no public comment at this time. Thank you.
Have any questions from the commissioners? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve Martinez?
Do I have a second? Second, Inman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Hannah.
Thank you. Tab 88 is an interchange improvement project in Contra Costa County. It's a project divided into 4 phases. The trade quarter program funded design of 2 of the phases, 18 million. And the project team wants to add phase 4 to the project design without requesting any additional cost, any additional funding. And this will both save money for the project and also put them in a better position to request federal funds. Tab 89 is a rail project in downtown San Diego. It involves signalization of a section of track downtown, and it has 3 control points. The project team wants to split out the first control point and automate it first, and then do the rest of the work as a separate project. That will improve the on-time performance of the freight trains. They are also asking for 48 months for project delivery, and they're also correcting the post miles. Staff have reviewed these requests and recommend approval.
Thank you, Hannah. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Any commissioners' questions? Commissioner Inman moved. Do I have a second?
Falcon, second.
Falcon seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Lori.
Yes, Commissioners, we'll vote on items 90, 91, and 92 together. I'll present 90, and then Beverly will take over and present 91 and 92. So Commissioners, item 90 is an action item to adopt the 2023 Active Transportation Program Guidelines, Metropolitan Planning Organization, Competitive Component, Metropolitan Transportation Commission. The Active Transportation Program allows for MPOs to propose guidelines for administering their MPO competitive component of the program. The MPO guidelines must be consistent with the state guidelines, but they are allowed discretion in certain areas, such as asking for a supplemental call for projects and project selection criteria and weighting. These guidelines must be reviewed by Commission staff and adopted by the Commission. The Metropolitan Transportation Commission is requesting adoption of their guidelines at this meeting, so the release of the regional call for projects can coincide with the state's call for projects. Commission staff reviewed MTC guidelines and found them consistent with the state guidelines. Staff will recommend adoption of the MTC's 2023 ATP guidelines. Beverly?
Thanks, Lori. Commissioners, tab 91 is an action item to approve an amendment to the 2021 Active Transportation Program. This includes programming an additional $552,000 in construction phase funding to National City's Highland Avenue Intercity Bike Connection Project and the statewide component, and programming an additional $7,217,000 in construction phase funding Shasta County's Cottonwood Avenue Trunk Line Express project and the small urban and rural component. When the Commission adopted the 2021 Active Transportation Program at the March 2021 meeting, there was not enough programming capacity available to recommend the requested amounts for these projects. Commission staff has identified program savings, and approval of this amendment will allow these savings to be used to fully program these projects up to their original ATP requests. Tab 92 is an action item to approve an amendment to the 2021 Active Transportation Program Metropolitan Planning Organization component to split the Southern California Association of Governments Sustainable Communities Program into 5 segments. This project combined plan, non-infrastructure, and quick build infrastructure elements, which cannot be combined under the program guidelines. The split, as outlined in your book item, will align this set of projects with the guidelines and aid in the overall deliverability of all sub-projects. Please note that there is an error in the agenda title for tab 92, which should reflect 5 proposed segments instead of 3. Tabs 90, 91, and 92 are action items, and staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Beverly. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Any commissioners have questions? I'll entertain a motion. We have Commissioner Davis moved and Commissioner Inman second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Teresa.
Commissioners, we will be taking 93 to 103 together. Agenda item 93 is an action item. This is a request to approve 11 projects to 3 local agencies. This for the CRISA program. This is consistent with the CRISA program guidelines, and staff is supporting this request. Thank you.
Commissioners, tab 94 is an action item to allocate $531,000 in State Route 238 Local Alternative Transportation Improvement Program funds to the Route 92 Corridor Improvement Project Phase 2, Segment 2. Staff has reviewed this request and finds it consistent with the State Route 238 Local Alternative Improvement Program guidelines and will recommend approval after the presentation of tab 103.
Commissioners, tab 95 is an allocation request for 7 SHOP minor program projects. Tab 96 is an action item for SHOP construction allocations. Please note the change list for this item. Tab 97 is an action item for 68 SHOP pre-construction phase support allocations in the amount of approximately $61.8 million. In light of our earlier discussion related to tab 45, and to read into the record, the pre-construction phase allocations of PS&E and right-of-way support for the Jack Peters Creek Bridge Project, also known as EA 43484, will be deferred to a short meeting that will be held prior to the Tulare Town Hall meeting on April 13th and 14th. Because of this deferral is coming at the request of the Commission, the project's timely use of funds will not be impacted or considered expired as of this meeting.
Great, thank you.
That's it.
Thank you so much. Casey.
Tab 98 is an action item requesting to allocate $2,268,000 to the state-administered South Coast 101 HOV lanes Carpinteria Segment 4A STIP project on the state highway system. Sorry about that. In Santa Barbara County. Tab 99 is an action item requesting to allocate $2,210,000 to the locally administered I-280 Sound Walls State Route 87 to Los Gatos Creek STIP project on the state highway system. Tab 100 is an action item requesting to allocate $3,694,000 to 5 locally administered STIP projects off the state highway system. Tab 101 is an action item requesting to allocate $4,398,000 to the locally administered Evergreen Road Bridge at South Fork Cottonwood Creek STIP project off the state highway system in Tehama County. Tab 102 is an action item requesting to advance $1 million to the locally administered Chestnut Street Pavement Rehabilitation and Safety Improvement STIP project off the state highway system in Santa Cruz County. And finally, tab 103 is an action item requesting to advance $11,949,000 to the locally administered I-10 Corridor Freight and Express Lane Project, Contract 2 STIP project on the state highway system in San Bernardino County. Staff has reviewed these requests and finds them consistent with the STIP guidelines and the approved program. Staff recommends approval of items 93 through 103.
Thank you, Casey. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this time. Thank you.
Have any questions? Then I'll entertain a motion to accept
Tab-
93 to 103.
Tabelloni, move it.
Do I have a second? Inman seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Back to Casey.
Tab 104 is an action item requesting to allocate $3 million to the state-administered San Joaquin Corridor second platforms for bi-hourly and morning express service STIP project on the intercity rail system in San Joaquin County. STIP guidelines require all rail and transit projects be eligible for state highway account or federal funds. Caltrans proposes to fund this project with the state highway account funds as it is not federally eligible. However, Commission staff has questioned the eligibility for the use of state highway account funds due to Article 19 requirements, which governs the use of state highway account funds for rail projects. Caltrans and Commission legal teams have met to discuss the consistency of this project with Article 19 and to determine if this rail project is eligible for state highway account funds. To date, legal teams have not reached a final determination. Therefore, staff recommends that public transportation account funds be used for this allocation to prevent project delivery delays.
No public comment. Thank you.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Liu, second.
Martinez?
Martinez, seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Commissioners, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tabs 105 through 112 will be presented together and voted on after tab 112. Tab 105 is an allocation request totaling $75,679,000 in local partnership, competitive, and formulaic program funds for 2 locally administered transit projects. $679,000 in formulaic funds is requested for the Smart Rail Operation Equipment Expansion Phase 3 project in Sonoma and Marin counties, programmed in fiscal year 21-22. $75 million in competitive funds is requested for the Metro G Line Bus Rapid Transit Improvement Project, located in Los Angeles County, programmed in fiscal year 19-20. Tab 106 is an allocation request for $3,435,000 in local partnership formulaic program funds for the locally administered Bay Shore Station pedestrian overpass rehabilitation project in various counties, programmed in fiscal year 21-22. Staff has reviewed these requests and the items are consistent with the local partnership program guidelines. Therefore, staff recommends your approval of tabs 105 and 106 after item 112.
Tab 107 is a request from Sacramento County for $11 million in trade corridor enhancement funds for construction to extend Elkhorn Boulevard to the Sacramento Airport and to facilitate the growth of nearby cargo and logistics facilities. Tab 108 is a request from the Riverside, from the city of Riverside for the 7191 project for construction of their interchange improvement. They're also requesting additional time for plant establishment. Tab 109 is a request from the North County Transportation District. This is an advance allocation request of $33.18 million for construction of a freight rail improvement project in San Diego. Just to note on tab 108, it's the Riverside County Transportation Commission requesting the $68.177 million. Staff recommends approval of these requests.
Commissioners, tab 110 is an action item to approve allocations of $42,690,000 for 28 active transportation program projects. Please note that after the agenda was posted, staff received comment letters related to projects 2 and 3 on the vote list, and these letters were distributed to commissioners as pink items. Tab 111 is an action item to approve an allocation of $2,056,000 for 2 active transportation program projects, and tab 112 is an action item to approve an advance allocation of $1,763,000 for Riverside County's El Toro Road, Dexter Avenue Safe Routes to School Sidewalk Project, programmed in fiscal year 22-23. Staff has reviewed the requests under tabs 105 through 112 and finds them consistent with the program guidelines and the adopted programs. Therefore, staff recommends approval of tabs 105 through 112.
Thank you, Beverly. Do we have any public comment?
See no public comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? I will entertain a motion to accept.
Move it, tab 11.
Yes.
Chris.
Second, Commissioner Davis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 113 has been withdrawn, correct?
Correct.
Okay, we will move on to 114.
Commissioners, tabs 114 through 128 will be grouped together and voted on after tab 128 has been presented. Tab 114 is an action item to consider a project allocation extension for the City of Santa Monica's Stewart, Pennsylvania Safety Enhancement Active Transportation Program project. This request is consistent with Active Transportation Program guidelines, and staff recommends approval of tab 114 as shown in the yellow time extension table after tab 128 has been presented.
We have Jaden.
Good afternoon, Chair Eager and Commissioners. Tab 115 is an action item requesting time extensions for the period of contract award for 12 projects in the State Highway Operations and Protection Program. Please make note of the change list for tab 115. The time extension requests are consistent with the State Highway Operations and Protection Program guidelines. Staff has reviewed tab 115 and recommends approval in accordance with the change list in the yellow time extension table.
Tab 116 is a request to consider a contract award deadline by 8 months for the the 180 West Freeway Landscape STIP project in Fresno County. Staff has reviewed this request and finds it consistent with the program and its guidelines.
Thank you. That's a little different than I-80. You're right.
Commissioners, tab 117 is an action item to approve a multi-funded Solutions for Congested Corridors program and State Transportation Improvement Program time extension for the Marin-Sonoma Narrows Contract B7 project located in Marin County. Approval of this item would extend the period of contract award for the construction phase of the project for 10 months to December 31, 2022. This request is consistent with the Solutions for Congested Corridors program and guidelines, the STIP and guidelines, and the timely use of funds policy. Therefore, Commission staff recommends your approval of tab 117.
Commissioners, tab 118 is an action item to consider contract award time extensions for 2 projects in the Active Transportation Program. Please note that the City of Lancaster's time extension request has been withdrawn as reflected in the change list. The 2 remaining time extension requests are consistent with ATP guidelines, and staff recommends approval of tab 118 after tab 128 has been presented. Commissioners, tab 119 is an action item to approve 3 contract award time extension requests for 3 local partnership competitive program projects in Monterey, Los Angeles, and San Diego counties. Please note a revision to project number 3 on the change list. Tab 120 is an action item to approve 1 contract award time extension request for the local partnership competitive program Next Gen Bus Mobile Validators for All Door Boarding Project in Los Angeles County. Staff has reviewed tabs 119 and 120 and recommends your approval of the time extension requests as shown on the time extension table after item 122.
Monica, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry about that. Tab 121 is a request to extend the contract award deadline for a transit and intercity rail capital program project. Staff has reviewed the request and finds it consistent with the transit and intercity rail capital program allocation policy.
Tab 122 is a request to consider a contract award deadline by 18 months for the Accelerating Rail Modernization and Expansion in the Capital Region Station Improvement Proposition 1A in Sacramento County. Staff has reviewed this request and finds it consistent with the Proposition 1A deadlines.
Commissioners, tab 123 is an action item requesting time extensions for the period of project completion for 7 projects in the State Highway Operations and Protection Program. Please make note of the change list for tab 123. The time extension requests are consistent with the State Highway Operations and Protection Program guidelines. Staff has reviewed tab 123 and recommends approval in accordance with the change list and the yellow time extension table.
Commissioners, tab 124 is a request to extend project completion of construction for the State Route 57 Lambert Road Interchange Improvements Project in Orange County. Additional time is needed to address material shortages, workforce delays, change orders, and utility issues. Caltrans is requesting a 12-month time extension from April 2022 to April 2023. Staff has reviewed this request and recommends approval. Commissioners, tab 125 is a request to extend project completion of construction of the Route 58 at 99 Bakersfield Freeway Connector Project in Kern County. Additional time is needed to account for unplanned permitting needs, inclement weather, and PG&E utility work. The local agency is requesting 14 additional months from November 30th to January 30th, 2023. November 30th, 2021 to January 30th, 2023. Staff has reviewed this request and recommends approval.
Good afternoon. Tab 126 is a request to extend the project completion deadline for a transit intercity rail capital program project. Staff has reviewed the request and finds it consistent with the transit intercity rail capital program allocation policy.
Commissioners, tab 127 is an action item requesting time extensions for the period of project development expenditure for 9 projects in the State Highway Operations and Protection Program. Please make note of the change list for tab 127. Time extension requests are consistent with the State Highway Operations and Protection Program guidelines. Staff has reviewed tab 127 and recommends approval in accordance with the change list and the yellow time extension table. Thank you.
Commissioners, tab 128 is an action item requesting to extend the period of project development expenditure for the Innovate 680 I-680 northbound HOT-HOV project programmed with project approval and environmental document phase funding in the local partnership formulaic program. The project experienced delay because SB 743 went into effect after allocation of the formulaic funds, mandating that vehicle miles traveled may be used as a new metric for analyzing and mitigating traffic effects. In addition, this request should have been submitted prior to the interim timely use of funds policy expiration on June 30, 2021. However, it is being presented as a post-fact time extension request because the agency was provided an incorrect deadline. Staff recommends approval of tabs 114 through 128 as recommended by the staff presentations.
Thank you, Anya. Do we have any public comment?
Chair Eager, I'd like to check with one attendee to ensure they're looking to comment on the current items or the public comment period. So, Anna Marie Weevil, do you wish to comment on any of the current items being discussed or for the public comment period at the end?
Yes, I was willing to make a comment about 127, but somehow that has come and gone. So do I have a chance to still comment on that?
Yes, you do.
Thank you so much. What is before you is that Caltrans, I'm referring to the 2 first items on your list on 127 that are dealing with Mendocino County, safety improvement project, and also a roadway protective betterment project. as you read in your documents,
If I could just interrupt for a second, were those two pulled? Projects 1 and 2 in tab 127?
Is that on the change?
I don't know if they were pulled.
I'm asking my team.
Hey, Mitch, two projects were pulled from tab 127. If you give me a few moments, I can briefly check and double check that those were the projects she was referring to.
Okay, so these two items were pulled, so they're no longer on our calendars. I just wanted to let you know. So if you'd like to make comment under public comment still, we can do that. But the items are no
Okay, well, I guess I have 1 minute left, so I'm glad they were pulled. I didn't realize that. And I think you could have saved $865,000 if Caltrans would have done a better job with these two projects. And we, as Albion Bridge stewards, would not have had to pay the money to appeal these two projects, which basically should be one project. And because they were definitely very piecemeal fashion, not completely described, very vague, unsupported, do not conform to all the requirements, and people weren't notified in the neighborhood. And so they definitely, that could have been prevented. And one parcel is still in litigation as far as I know, because that also delayed things, but this is not okay to do mass grading of a designated highly scenic Navarro-rich natural landform. It's a wildlife corridor. It's very sensitive in terms of ESHA and sensitive in terms of avian species who are foraging on the ESHA. It's a highly scenic Highway 1 road right next to the ocean. And to create this destruction to make it wider is only going to make people drive faster and have more accidents. And the drainage was not done right in the beginning by Caltrans. They're trying to fix that, and now we're concerned about new drainage issues. And there was new work done since we appealed.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public comment on these issues?
No other public comment at this time for the current issues discussed.
Thank you. We have any comments or questions from commissioners? I will entertain a motion.
A motion to approve Martinez. Second, Buckland.
In the middle of the selfies. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And I understand we still have public comment. We have Shirley Weiss and Laura DeMarco. As soon as he goes by, then you're on. Yep, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, honorable commissioners. I think the economist Daniel Kahneman is credited with saying that you should never try to persuade someone of anything right before lunch, but alas, here we are.
Here we are.
My name is Shirley Weiss. I'm a longtime resident of Del Mar, California, and a constituent of the North County Transit District. I've practiced law in San Diego for over 40 years. Every year, CalSTA grants hundreds of millions of dollars to transit districts under funding programs like the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program. Important terms and conditions of these grants are reflected in master agreements with the transit district. As the citizens of California would expect, grant agreements require as a critical condition that grantees comply with all environmental laws, indeed, all state environmental laws. including, very importantly, environmental laws. Indeed, it would be unthinkable for the state to fund grantees that thumb their noses at state law and regulations and declare that they have no intention of complying with either. But that is exactly what is happening regarding Del Mar's beautiful and fragile ocean bluffs. NCTD has announced that it has no intention of complying with state environmental laws or regulations and is not bound by them. On January 19th, California's Attorney General warned NCTD not to approve a job order to construct hog wire industrial fencing on Del Mar's bluffs without first complying with the Coastal Act, because that would be a violation of California law and a breach of contract, the master agreement. NCTD said it would go ahead anyway and approve the job order, and it did. On March 7th, 2022, the Coastal Commission issued an executive director's cease and desist order against NCTD. If NCTD is allowed to disregard its contractual obligations under the master agreement, other grantees will do likewise. This is a standard agreement. NCTD's breach of contract is an existential threat to the enforcement of California's contracts and, by extension, to the enforcement of California's environmental laws and your regulations. Yesterday, Council for Friends of Del Mar sent a letter to the Secretary and the Chief of the TIRCIP requesting that all funding to NCTD be stayed until it complies with its contract with the state. We don't wish to impede valid projects, for which we're very grateful, but it is unacceptable to allow NCTD to proceed to fence Del Mar's beautiful bluffs at its sole discretion, a true bull in the china shop. We hope that CALSA and Caltrans and CTC will acknowledge the urgency of this matter and take action. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. And is Laura? Yes, Laura's here.
Thank you, Commissioner Eager. I heard from Commissioner Falcone that you're going to be visiting Del Mar probably next March. I hope the weather is as good. But I'm going to let you get to lunch in your airplanes in the airport to take a nice flight back to wherever you go, or get it in a great train or car to go on the transportation systems that you're helping fund. So thank you very much for coming, and I'll let you get to lunch or wherever your destinations are taking you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other public comment?
No other public comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to thank all of you for joining us here today. Special thank you to Mayor Gloria and his staff for hosting us yesterday, to Sandag, District 11. We had wonderful tours, and we were able to enjoy this beautiful area. And a special thank you to Commissioner Falcone for letting us come to your beautiful city and being a wonderful host. Obviously, we have a lot of things coming up in the next few months. So we have listening sessions and town hall meetings and joint meetings. So please check our website if you'd like to join us on any of those. And then I'm looking forward to seeing everyone in Central Valley in May. Hopefully, we'll be in Fresno in the beautiful weather. But with that, we would like to adjourn this meeting in memory of Heinz Heckroth, who has been a supporter of transportation for many, many years. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Hey, Chair.